Leadership TV for God and country.
Good morning and welcome to a fresh edition of your number one breakfast show on television, and that is Inside Nigeria. Welcome to the new month of July. Today is July 3rd, 2023. My name is Winifred Webo, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to host you on today's program. Without wasting much time, we always want to start with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership, on our menu today. So let's see what leadership is leading with. Leadership says 2023 elections, presidency, Labour Party CSOs differ on EU report. 2023 elections, presidency, Labour Party CSOs differ on EU report. Stories on page 4 of leadership. Let us breathe, presidency tells EU observers. You're just saving your face, LP fires back. Over 1,000 petitions suggest poor conduct, CSOs. The court will decide, says IPAC. Still on leadership newspaper, we have the picture of the Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke with former Governor of Old Oyo State, Dr. Victor Oluloyo, at the latter's residence in Molete, Ibadan yesterday. Of course, you see the Octogenarian and the Osun State Governor in a smiling, warm handshake. Above that, we have no more division in Senate over Akpabio leadership, senators. No more division in Senate over Akpabio leadership, senators. Weed overgrows Lafia Cargo Airport taken over by federal government. Weed overgrows Lafia Cargo Airport taken over by federal government. Hajj, Hajj. Saudi Arabia blames logistic challenges on invaders. Kuka tax federal government on freedom of worship. Kuka tax federal government on freedom of worship. From that cover, we move over to the page 3 of leadership, where there is the editorial for the day, as governors and the need for accountability. Our stand, our as governors and the need for accountability. That's the story, that's the editorial on today's leadership. And back page, we have Monday column with Dakuku Pitisai rescuing the Nigerian middle class. Ghana must go says my BP would have risen if I lost my senatorial bid for Shomole. And guess the answer. Have you checked it today? Very funny. So for more stories on leadership newspaper, just log on to the website www.leadership.ng. From leadership, we move over to the next paper that have similar headline stories with leadership, and that is this day. This day says today, federal government will reject EU's 2023 elections observation report on Nigeria. Federal government will reject EU's 2023 elections observation report on Nigeria. Says report biased, flawed, born out of inadequate coverage. Articles A report shows Tinubu rigged poll Lambas presidency. EU's account corroborates our position, international observers, says Labour Party. I'll take that again. Federal government will reject EU's 2023 elections observation report on Nigeria. Says report bias, flawed, born out of inadequate coverage. Articles 8 report shows Tinubu rigged poll Lambas presidency. EU's account corroborates our position, international observers, says Labour Party. Above that, we have Chief of Army Staff, Lagbaja urges Nigerians to pray for nation, military. Chief of Army Staff, Lagbaja urges Nigerians to pray for nation, military. Adeleke was underrated, says Oyo ex-governor Olunloyo. That's the picture you have, the cover picture you had on the leadership. Is the story for it. Adeleke was underrated, says Oyo ex-governor Olunloyo. Zenith retains top spot as Nigeria's number one bank by Tier 1 capital for 14th straight years. And for more stories on this day, you just log on to the website www.thisdaylive.com. From leadership, we move over to the next paper on our menus. We still with the same headline stories as that of leadership and this day, and that is Daily Sun. Daily Sun says presidential election, Tinubu APC INEC fights back at tribunal today. Tinubu APC INEC fights back at tribunal today. Open defense on Obi Labour Party Atiku PDP petitions. Scores killed in renewed ethnic hostilities in Taraba community. Austerity, experts tax Tinubu to urgently arrest dwindling economy. PDP National Working Committee meets senators over minority leadership. Peace Committee should present post-2023 election report, group demands. Senate awaits Tinubu's ministerial list. Adamu's absence towards APC's decision on NAS principal officials' positions. Senate awaits Tinubu's ministerial list. Adamu's absence towards APC's decision on NAS principal officials' positions. Serap writes Tinubu seeks pending details of 400 billion naira fuel subsidy savings. I'm not under pressure on choice of commissioners, Obore Wori, that is the Delta State governor. From the Sun newspaper, we see the Punch. The Punch says governors battle cash crunch. Governors battle cash crunch. Delta, Imo, Cross River, Oyo lead as states borrow 130 billion naira in 3 months. 17 shortfall hit states internally generated revenue. Debts rise to 5.5 trillion naira. Governors battle cash crunch is the headline story on the Punch newspaper this morning, Monday, July 3rd, 2023. Delta, Imo, Cross River, Oyo lead as states borrow 130 billion naira in 3 months. 17 shortfall hit states internally generated revenue. Debt rise to 5.5 trillion naira. Still on the Punch newspaper, we move over to above the masthead first. Opposition attacks federal government as presidency lambast EU poll observers. NLC to meet Tinubu on 65-year retirement age. NNPCL marketers fuse vessels arrive next week. Ipman. Down just beneath the headline pictures, we have UTME top performer manipulated score faces prosecution. Jam. Taraba communal clash claims 50 lives. Governor imposes curfew. That's the leading story on the Punch newspaper. And just before we go, there's another story making the headlines there. That is Zenith Bank lists Nigerian lenders in new global ranking. For more stories on the Punch newspaper, just log on to the website. Then briefly before we go, let's see the editorial of the Punch. The Punch says economy requires carefully planned policies. Economy requires carefully planned policies. That is the editorial on the Punch. From the Punch, we move over to Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard has leading story on March to Nigeria's economy recovery. March to Nigeria's economic recovery. Revealed Tinubu's move against terrorism. Tinubu's move against terrorism. Comprehensive onslaught against terrorists and bandits begin. Security architecture set for review. Rules of engagement to be determined by the nature of the security threat. More shake-up imminent in the security services. President vows to stop crude oil theft. Economic policies to reflect contemporary realities. Scores of captives released as farmers return to their farms in Northwest. Consultations in the political, economic, and security spheres continue. That is the leading story on Vanguard. And of course, we have other leading story leading stories as well. Fuel subsidy made EV vehicles unattractive in Nigeria. That is World Bank. That is coming from World Bank. Fuel subsidy made e-vehicles unattractive in Nigeria. Fuel subsidy removal, forest reforms. Investors raking 5.3 trillion naira in H1 23. Highest gain in 15 years. Gains attributed to policy changes, corporate earnings, but analysts warn of debt policy shocks. Above the masthead of Vanguard, we have Presidency rejects EU's report on 2023 general elections. EU's report reliable, says Atiku. Anxiety as federal government resumes work on Lagos-Ibadan expressway today. 9 illegal refineries with 1 million barrel per day production capacity uncovered in Bayelsa. Ministerial nominees: Osumbo Ambassador Musa Mohammed may make list. That is beneath the infogram on the cover of this Vanguard. Sorry. 10th Senate opposition to Tambuwa's minority leadership bid swears. 10th Senate opposition to Tambuwa's minority leadership bid swears. For more stories on Vanguard, you have to log on to the website. But just before we go, we have this story. JAMB raises alarm over candidates parading fake scores. JAMB raises alarm over candidates parading fake scores. For more stories on Vanguard and insights pages, log on to the website www.vanguardngr.com. We move over to the last paper we have on our menu today in this first segment of the show, and that is The Nation. The Nation's leading with investors 4.35 trillion naira gain in 1 month boost economy. Investors 4.35 trillion naira gain in 1 month boost economy. Tinubu rallies Nigeria to world's top 3. Stock market hits 15-year high. Aggregate market value of all quoted equities has risen by 4.35 trillion naira over the past 5 weeks, accounting for about 82% of total net capital gains of 5.33 trillion naira in first half of 2023. We also have rioters raid home of French mayor. Ndume Bamidele bidding for Senate leader post. Presidency rejects EU's 2023 poll report. Labour Party okays verdict. Chinese naval ships in Nigeria. 2 dead in US mass shooting. Kwankwaso backs Yusuf on demolition of buildings in Kano. And above the leading story, we have actor Olu Jacobs is not here 80% of the time, says wife Joke Silva. Above the masthead, death toll of Nigerian pilgrims rises to 13. Banks collected 8.9 trillion naira deposits in 12 months. CBN $35.15 billion in reserves. FCDA to demolish police station orders on waterways. Zenith Bank on top with $2.54 billion tier 1 capital. For more stories on The Nation, just log on to the website. Well, viewers, this is where we come to the end of today's newspaper review on the first segment of our breakfast show inside Nigeria. And don't go away, we have second segment coming up. We'll be discussing some headline stories on today's newspapers. And of course, with me in the studio to discuss that is a political scientist, is also a public affairs analyst, Aliu Elias. Don't go away, just stay tuned.
sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, the program is Inside Nigeria, your number one breakfast show on television. My name is Unifor Bebo, and there is a second segment of our program. We will be discussing some headline stories. With me in the studio, as I announced earlier, is a political scientist, also a public affairs analyst, Aliyu Elias. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And Bakari Salah.
Barikade Salah in areas, right?
That's about my ram.
No, Ram is always enough.
Heard that it's sold as much as 700,000
Very,
naira.
very,
How
very
true?
expensive. Well, I don't really see 7, but I saw 300,000.
You saw
400,000.
300.
My neighbor
That's more.
bought 250. Yes.
250.
Wow.
Wow, it's quite expensive. So you're welcome. So we are going to be discussing the EU report. Remember that the EU also actually made their final submission to INEC last week, and of course, it's something that has continued to generate a controversy over what is and what not. With the presidency rejecting it outright, saying that in a statement signed by the special advisor communications and strategy, they say that Nigeria has moved ahead, that President Tinubu is making giant strides in trying to revitalize the economy. But the opposition parties are saying, yes, this is what we have been saying, corroborates our earlier stance on the election being rigged and manipulated. So, what's your views? And this is coming on the basis on the fact that the tribunal is resuming today to begin
The fireworks.
the fireworks. Yes.
Right. I actually monitored the election myself, so I have at least a little understanding of the election. So what I would say is that
Okay. You monitored it here in Abuja
yes,
or
here in
where?
Abuja,
Okay.
here in Abuja, at least 2 local governments I was
Okay.
able to cover.
But Abuja's was fairly okay. It was okay.
But it was presidential.
Yes. it
So,
was.
and that's what is in contention.
Yes.
So, what I would say is that basically,
But it was actually in the states that we have some.
no, generally, is this the major problem is that they didn't upload. That's
Yes,
always
that's
the
just
question.
the
So,
question,
it's
yes.
just so. But if you ask me, I think
And that's what the EU said, that not uploading the
uploading
presidential
the
results has
presidential
also cast aspersion on INEC and then made Nigerians to lose faith with the electoral process.
Well, if you ask me, we have made some progress. While we still have room for improvement,
Mm.
you will agree with me that before now, accreditation is not always like this. Accreditation this time was very perfect.
Yes, it was. It
Very
was.
perfect, at least
Rivers.
90%, and
Yes.
that is common. However, the only challenge we have is the uploading
Yes.
issue,
That's
but I think
the
it's much more technical. But the only challenge is that I expect INEC to have come out on time and acknowledge that there was error, there was technical challenge, there was hitches, and that's why we are unable to do A, B, and C. So, however, it is expected that EU should make their own position known. So, for me, they have been monitoring our election over time, and they are free to express their feelings. Even small organizations that have the people, they still go to press and say this. The only thing is that people, I think, Tinubu government shouldn't have involved themselves in responding. You know why?
Okay.
You don't. It is even not your business.
But don't you
You know-
think
do you
that
know why it is
by
not their
keeping quiet
business?
is a tacit admission of
Well,
guilt?
I don't
process?
think it's their business as at now. You know why? INEC is there to defend themselves. It is a system. It is not
Okay, it's
Tinubu.
true.
You just benefit from the system. It is not
It's not you.
Tinubu problem. So in the
I
long run, it
understand
is
that.
INEC challenge. So sometimes when you come out, it's just not okay for you to quickly come out. So they are still
defend INEC.
they are still behaving like opposition. That is what it is, because
Yes.
opposition will always want to come and
I
defend. So this
see
is, you are in the
your-
presidency, so you don't need to. However, there is going to be reply by Tinubu and INEC to opposition parties' claims today. So which we expect to be at least something very, very noble, because you know it's always a challenge. It's always a recurring decimal. Even in USA up till now, Donald Trump is still laying claim to have been the winner of the election. So it is everywhere like that. So we only want to say they should strengthen our electoral system. If they strengthen our system, we will not have it. You know why? If you strengthen our electoral system said between 2 months, complete the court cases before you even swear in the president.
Yes,
that's what happened in
that's
Kenya.
what
Is it in Kenya? Yes, that would too, because
Okay.
within 2 weeks they decide and they know who is the winner. So if the lacuna is not there, that after 6 months they will still continue cases. So
yes,
I think the lacuna is what we should look at.
you think we'll be able to dispense of court case before swearing in?
It's possible. 3 months is possible. 2 months is possible.
Okay.
So it depends on electoral law itself, and that's why it is still subject to amendment. So they should amend it that before swearing in, all court cases must have finished.
The Kenya own that you mentioned, but at the end of the day, what happened was that there was a key witness who later came after Supreme Court has ruled that how they manipulated the system against Biden.
But the earlier is always better.
But it was already too late.
It was already done. So
Yes,
no matter,
so
judgment is still going to come now, right? So what if we have the judgment 2 months and before the new president is swearing? You know what? It's pretty difficult for opposition now, because the person you are fighting with is the president. So on the same climb, you know that being a president is already a factor in the decision making. We are not saying that they are going to influence, but no matter what, they appoint all these judges and things can still happen. But imagine if he's not the president, 3 people are laying claim, go to court and ascertain. And however, we should also move from a place whereby the court will remain the last hope for election. It is very wrong. Every election will go to court. You even notice that even at a point, Supreme Court also fined some people. That no, they find them some, because they discover that every Dick and Harry want to bring, and wasting our money, our common patrimony is also wasted too. So I think we need to. No, so for me, the president should have said your Alaki should have said your observations are well noted. We will improve on our electoral system. Very finished. You don't need to engage in altercation.
And it was INEC
to respond.
Yes, to respond to that.
And they are going to respond in court today as well. So that's it.
Okay, so they don't want to make any of that.
So, but for me, our election, there is progress.
Okay, so now the election battle is starting today. What are we expecting?
Well, ordinarily, you cannot preempt the court. However, I don't think judgment has even started. It's still people presenting documents, counter documents and what have you. So, but for me, I think it's a normal process, because these people that are doing it also want to make it relevant. In Nigerian politics is very interesting. Remember, Buhari, over 12 years, keep on going to court.
Yes,
and it's now pay off for him. He later became Nigeria president. So let them
that
also
last
continue.
time he went to court, he actually shed tears.
Yeah,
and he
he
wasn't
said he
coming
won't
back
go again, but
Yes,
he still find his way to contest. So the thing is, let them continue to go to court. It will strengthen our electoral process, because that's the beauty of court. By the time they come out with a judgment would have validate or disclaim a process, which will help us going forward.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, the another headline story that I want us to discuss is the one making the headline story on the Punch newspaper today. Governors battle cash crunch. Delta, Imo, Cross River, your lead as states borrow 130 billion in 3 months.
Well, it is expected.
3 months.
It is
They
expected
just came on board.
that Naira redesign challenges is going to reflect in the internal generated revenue.
That is what it's
because if there's nothing you can do.
17 shortfall.
You are even looking at government. Let's look at private sector. A lot of fast moving consumer goods are in serious problems. because of that negative policy. So now they are now looking for money to pay their staff. What's the meaning of this? Simply means that the repetition of what happened during Buhari, where government have to come in to give each state money to pay their staff, is going to happen again. So that's why we have to be very careful with our policy. The new naira, where is the new naira now? I don't know how long you see new naira.
I saw one once in a while.
Once in a while, imagine. So that means the policy is not well conceived. That's why I told people during that period that this policy is not well conceived, and stakeholders are not carried along, and it has come to, it is evident now that they are not serious about. So now it is affecting. The only problem is that we must reduce our borrowing. If Nigeria does not reduce this borrowing, we are going to be in a serious quagmire that we cannot get out of. Because if you keep on borrowing and you have to pay, that means your recurrent expenditure. Remember, paying of debt is part of recurrent expenditure.
Yes,
so it then means there would be nothing for capital projects. And when you don't have capital projects, your development will be slowing down every now and then. So I think we need to look at it. And the same thing as the president, we have now heard that they want to borrow. We don't expect them to borrow because now the federal government now have more money.
Yes,
because the fuel subsidy has been removed. The dollar that they used to give official rates, they have unified it. Now there's even something that me and you are going to start paying now, 1,000 naira for our is it now something or 1,000 naira. So they're looking at different way of raising revenue. Though I will agree with that one because it won't be felt so much. But looking at the challenge of fuel subsidy removal, we are going to see more challenges because now the government are getting more money.
Why
citizens are worse off, and when citizens are worse off, governance does not make
sense. World Bank has also predicted that the inflation rate
yes, it is expected as well.
But shouldn't the president be putting things in place to
for me, this current president seems to be fast in bringing policy, in changing policy, but slow in creating an absorber, shock absorber that will help Nigerians, because you are trying to get more money. What are you doing for, ideally we are not even expected to wait for World Bank. Now that you are getting 400 billion, say 150 billion will go for the masses, at least to pushing the effect for a particular level. Look at way of mitigating, just like what happened at increment on electricity. They came in and said, at least this 50 billion every month, they can be doing that subsidy. There is no state, there is no country that will joke with energy security. When there is no energy security, manufacturing have issue, household begin to have issue, and there will be the purchasing power will be what? Be eroded. So these are the things why we always say that, in as much as I agree they have made mistake, because I call it a mistake. How can you remove subsidy without no plan? Now, I'm still expecting to see mass transit bus. I'm expecting for them to invite me to come and convert my car to CNG. I'm expecting salary to be increased across board. These are the things we want to see, but no one is actually working. And we see a lame NLC. Should I say a lame NLC?
Yes, but they are hampered now by the industrial court.
Is it only industrial court? Even their approach to this issue is not a good one. So I think
they are meeting again in 2 months' time.
Do you know what would have happened in 2 months' time? People would have worse off. In fact, World Bank also came that about how many 4,000 Nigerians no, is it 4,000? 4 million have gone into poverty. The more. And if you have 1.3 million multi-dimensional poverty, and now there is issue of energy. This of energy is not what we see on the surface. Some people are not going to work again. Some people have decided to resign because I cannot be staying in Zuma and be paying about 3,500 naira for a salary of 50,000. Does not just work. When my transport itself is about 75,000 naira, how do I going to get that autonomous consumption to meet up? So it's a very big issue that states have to do something, the federal government have to do something. If you say you want to reduce number of people working, you are just killing Nigerian productivity. It cannot work. We have seen it maybe in Kaduna, that every Friday, as it translates to increments in their productivity. So these are the problems. So for me, I think this government has to take a very geometric approach to solve the current problem.
Just like what you said, Ali, that's exactly what is playing out in some states. Like, for instance, Edo State said for students, they are going to reduce their school hours. school days.
I wonder how it's
just
going to be
so,
effective.
just like what you pointed out.
Yes.
Instead of providing measures, palliative measures for the parents,
we have a teaching method. At primary school level, you have to use what we call play method and teach. At that point in time, there is need for for you to engage those students. By the time you engage them, that's when they will learn.
Yes.
If you now say they should go 2 days online, they should come 3 day physical class. Does not work for that category. Does not even work for that category. So the fact just remains that they should make sure people go to class 5 days as expected, so that productivity. Remember, once they don't go to school, that means a commuter, a driver will not get more income. Remember that also teacher will not be engaged. A lot of you have to look at value
like
chain. A lot of things
value chain
will be affected. So productivity will be short. So I think they should rethink that and do something meaningful.
So what should the president do? Because the situation whereby, just like what you just pointed out, roll-up policy, and he's not looking at the masses.
The government should not please give these governors any palliative. Those governors should go to their state, think very well, and get more internal generated. Show me one state that does not have natural resources in Nigeria. How well have we managed? Have we tapped those things? We must also be very, very careful, because if we keep on giving them money, they come cap in hand every time when there is problem to the national government. It becomes unserious governors. They should also put on their thinking cap and generate internal revenue. Why the federal government should look into MSME? There should be a serious support for them now. Most SME are out of business because they cannot even cater to their needs again. They cannot produce, and when they do, and this is over 50 employment level. MSME provide about 50% of our employment. So if these people cannot go, insecurity does not allow them to go to farm. They cannot afford to even go to their work for transportation. They cannot afford energy to really run their businesses. So it becomes a problem. So I want to see government coming up with all those things in 2-3 weeks. A solution plan. Do you want to tell me that if you want to buy boxes, luxurious boxes, you cannot buy it in 3 months, in 2 months?
In 2 months.
It's getting too late. I expect them that there should be enough from Zuba, enough from Gwagwalada, for Abuja, enough from Maraba. There will be and there will be CNG. So when it is CNG, instead of them paying like 5,000 naira for transportation, it will have reduced to maybe 100. I mean to like 2,000 naira. So people would have benefit from it. But from what they are doing, I don't think they are thinking for masses. They just want to harness more revenue without proper planning.
Really, really sad. Now, just before we go, and there's another trending story. I read it yesterday, and I was dazed that teenagers we have now are going beyond, they are doing themselves. UTME top performer manipulated score faces prosecution jam.
Well, for me, I think that 16-year-old child cannot manipulate. So there should be investigation on how the manipulation
came
works.
about.
Because you can't, and it's embarrassing for this
very,
girl.
very embarrassing.
So who is actually behind the manipulation? Is somebody supporting her,
and
or JAMB itself is not doing its work correctly? These are the things we need to find out. And the result is not bad too. 249 is a real result according to them. It's not
but
bad.
they said she scored far lower than that.
No, she declared 360.
Okay, 360. Okay.
Yes, but her actual result is 249.
Which is not bad.
It's not bad. In fact, it's qualified for medicine.
The cutoff mark was 150.
Was 140 or
140. It has been generating a lot of.
I don't know why.
Has it gone that low?
No, the facts just remain that I think we are trying to satisfy some people with our educational system, which is very bad.
It is
Very, very bad. For me, if you ask me, education is balanced in Nigeria. I can tell you that if you go to Kebbi, go to Sokoto, you can get quality education, you can get in any way. Just the commitment. So challenge them to be at least 150 for university. But you say 140 university? 150 used to be for polytechnics.
Yes.
So now it's generated to the extent that it is now so low. When I saw it, I was so surprised.
Yes.
That how can you say this is the cut-off mark? No, this is quite. It's lowering our perhaps there's another problem. Remember that even the JAMB is looking it's just ordinary process without effect. You know why? If you actually score that 151, the school you are going will also set an exam for you. So why are we doing JAMB? If I got JAMB, I scored 250, and I still have to go to my university apply for to still write another exams. So why am I actually writing JAMB? So I think we should look at that thing. Maybe they should scrap JAMB itself and make sure they have a way of monitoring those schools. Maybe they should be inviting JAMB to conduct or to supervise their internal exam, because also that means some child will score 250 in JAMB and will not get admission.
Yes, that's what it means. But no, I'm still on the age of the, these are secondary or maybe candidates that just finished. How was she able to manipulate
it? Cannot be she. Okay, let's look at the process itself. There must be involvement in from all the stakeholders. You could always a parent, not even going parent, a business center would have been involved. That person cannot it's beyond what you can ordinarily do now. For it to even convert a PDF document to Microsoft, it's a process. So somebody must have engaged in supporting her to do that. So that's where we say we challenge them to carry out a thorough investigation to examine and determine, because they said they are going to sue her to court. I think it's too early. It's too early. They should do a thorough investigation, and all the culprits should be bring to book. Very key.
Thank you so much. That is our takeaway on today's program, the Breakfast Show Inside Nigeria. Well, we have heard it from a political scientist and public affairs analyst, Anu Elias. Thank you so much once again. Thank you for having me on today's program. And my name is Winifred Obego. I'll come your way again, same time, same station tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.